Hold on, y'all. What is? Okay, that's why it's doing that. All right. Peace, 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 peace. Y'all get my uh start in a few minutes for the share the show and let a few more people come in. But I spoke to see it. She is simply unique. Peace, sis. Peace, brother Jadar. Peace, uh, Ibibibo. And let me know, man, if I'm saying your name, pronouncing your name right, man. You might have a problem with me mispronouncing your name, good brother. I know sometimes I have issues when people mispronounce my name, but sometimes they just can't get it right. Y'all hit me if you don't mind. Either share the show real quick. That's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna jump into it. Y'all gotta excuse me too. My hair ain't combed today. I'm tired. Let me go here. Let's see if damn, and my other brother's gonna jump in or not. And if anybody else that wanna jump on once I get started, you more than welcome. I'll put the link in the chat. And once I get started and later on if somebody feel like they want to pop in on the panel, uh, feel free. Like I said, y'all just give me about 2 more minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and jump into it. Got time to say that's not true. Give me 1 more minute, y'all. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. We're gonna get into some Black history. Shoot. Am I clear, y'all? Well, Man, where I'm at. Alright. I ain't studying that right now. Excuse me. Am I clear, y'all? Yeah, I was trying to share the show a little bit more, but I ain't got time. I'm finna jump into it. Y'all help me share the show. Maybe Sean and a few other brothers will pop in throughout the bill. And shoot, hold on 1 second before I get started. I'm gonna put this link in here too before I get started. Let me go back. Let's see if I can. Hold on, let me go here. I'm gonna put the link in here. Let me go back to YouTube on my laptop. I'll put the link in here. And if anybody else that want to jump in at any time and you know what I'm saying, stop my bill and contribute something to the bill in the presentation, like I said, just feel free. Hold on, let me go to it. Ko-fi. All right. I may keep it up. Ko-fi. All right. Yeah, share that show for my brother Sutik. I see you trying to share it for me. I was trying to share a few more, but I'm ready to go ahead and get started. Let me put this link in here though, man. Like I say, anybody that want to jump in on the panel and all right. Shoot. All right. I'll do it. Let me see. Let me do it. Nope. Yeah, it will. Okay. No, it won't. All right. I have to do it right here. Y'all give me just a second. There it is. Copy invitation. All right. And put it in here. Wow, is it gonna let me put it? Wow. Hold on, y'all. It's not gonna let me put the whole thing in here. Hold on, let me see something here. Let's see what let me do here. Copy stream link. All right. All right. Y'all just be patient with me. That should get y'all in if anybody want to jump on the panel or whatever. And when you get it on the panel, if you decide to get on the panel, raise your hand because I don't have your email address, and with this Zoom, it don't let you just come in with the webinar. So raise your hand so I can see you, and I'll put you in manually on the panel. But man, let's get into it. Hold on. All right. Let me share my screen. Let me know if y'all can see my screen out there. I'm looking on the other end too. I got a delay on this end. Hold on too while I'm sharing my screen. Let me stop. Let's see. Hold on, share computer sound.
Man in the full knowledge of himself is a superb and supreme creature of creation. When man becomes possessor of the knowledge of himself, he becomes master of his environment. the director of his own destiny, the accomplisher of his own ends. Man should understand himself because man is full of knowledge, and this knowledge is a gift of nature. When Mother Nature created man, she deprived him of nothing. He was given the faculty of understanding all things around him. This faculty for understanding has not been taken away from him. None of his senses have been taken away from him. So there is no excuse for the black man.
I'm raising my team, red, black, and green. Queens and kings, salute, now scream. I shade, I shade. I'm raving my team, red, black, and green. Queens and kings, salute, now scream. I shade, I shade, I shade.
All right, let me know, y'all, if y'all can still hear me out there. I'm sharing my computer sound. I'll try to share my computer sound when we doing playing a video or something from YouTube. Excuse me, or some music. So let me know if y'all still hear me. If not, I'm gonna have to take that option back off of there. I'll give it just a second. I got a delay on my end. Get back on. Can y'all hear me? I'm gonna take it off of there, man. Can't hear me. Oh, it's off. Is it? No, it's still on. You good? Okay. I'm just trying to make sure. All right. What you see up here on the screen, this is Origin of Black Power, a walk through Black history. Let me do this too. Turn my camera off because I can see myself at the top up there. All right, that's gone. All right. Am I still up there at the top, y'all? Give me just, okay, it's gone. It's gone. All right, again, today's presentation is called The Origin of Black Power, a walk through Black history. My disclaimer, I always have to put a disclaimer out here before I get started. I am not a teacher, but merely a student sharing information, and that information provided is for the educational purpose only. And if you are in doubt, do the research or have it verified by someone qualified. I reserve the rights to change the focus of this presentation to shut down, sell, or exchange the terms or use at my own discretion. All trademark, design rights, copyrights, registered names, mottos, logos, avatars, insignias, or marks used or cited by this website or the property of their respective owners. I reserve the right to add information as it comes available, or add or adapt changes, improve information as it comes available in the future. Inputs, wanted changes, additions, deletions are encouraged. All right, everybody that follow me know this is my saying. I believe in this saying. This is a powerful saying. As I learn, we all learn. And my new saying, let's get this culture. All right. Civil rights movement. Before we talk about the origin of Black Power, like I said earlier, when Sean was doing his presentation today on the Mossy Warrior Clan, if you didn't check that out, go back later on in the archives and check that out. That was a good presentation / bill. But before we even talk about the Black Power movement or the phrase Black Power, we have to talk about the civil rights movement. And today, I'm gonna walk you through from the early 1940s all the way to the late 1960s, and I'm doing this for a reason. The 1940s, early 1940s, which was the jump off of the civil rights movement per se. Some say it started earlier that when you deal with some of those white folks, but anyway, we're going to touch with the early 1940s and go all the way into the 1960s. But before we talk about Black Power movement, we have to talk about the civil rights movement. There will be no civil rights movement without there will be no Black Power movement without the civil rights movement. And a lot of those organizations, as well as popular individuals that we have grown to love, come out of the civil rights movement and changed their perspective and their way and went toward the Black Power movement. But we'll get into that a little bit later on throughout the presentation. But again, we're gonna talk about the civil rights movement briefly before we get into the Black Power movement. All right, the civil rights movement. The civil rights movements did not suddenly appear out of nowhere. In the 20th century, efforts to improve the quality of life in African Americans are as old as the United States. By the time of the American Revolution in the late 18th century, abolitionists were already working to eliminate racial injustice and bring an end to the institution of slavery. During the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln issued an Emancipation Proclamation, which was codified into laws as the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The 13th Amendment officials outlawed slavery, and when it went in effect in 1985, we know 1983, 1863, and it was officially in 1865. And we know the slaves were freed in the North, and the South wasn't going for that. We know the South and the North went to war. We had a civil war, or they had a civil war, because the South did not want to relinquish their slaves. And we also know why Abraham did what he did when he passed down the Emancipation Proclamation with too much over product. But that's a whole nother story as well. But here's like I said, we're gonna get a little bit more into the civil rights movement. This here is just a march. I think this is a march during the civil rights movement. I think this was in Washington, if I'm not saying. You can see the great ancestor here, Martin Luther King. And again, like I said, we can't talk about the Black Power movement without talking about the civil rights movement. After the Civil War, during the period known as the Reconstruction, the passage of the 14th and the 15th Amendment established a legally foundation for the political equality of African Americans. Despite the abolitions of slavery and the legal gains for African America, racial segregation known as Jim Crow across the South. Jim Crow segregation meant that Southern blacks would continue to live in conditions of poverty, inequality, with white supremacies denying them their hard-won political rights of freedom. So after the Emancipation Proclamation passed, we know that they passed the Jim Crow laws. We know that they did sharecropping as well. If you want to know more about Jim Crow and sharecropping, if you're not familiar with those, you can go back in the archives and look at how white folks got so rich, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. It's supposed to have been a part 5, and maybe later on I'll come back and do a part 5. I don't know when I'll do it, but it may be coming sometime soon. But I have for one of those presentations how white folks got so rich. I talk about go in depth in Jim Crow and in what is sharecropping. All right, the 20th century civil rights movement emerged in response to unfulfilled promise of the emancipation parties as a result of experiencing of the black soldiers in the Second World War. African Americans fought in the segregated military while beginning exposed to the U.S. propaganda emphasizing liberty, justice, and equality. We know that the United States did not mean that when they said liberty, justice, equality, and freedom for all. It was excluded for the for the black folks. After fighting in the name of democracy in other countries around the world, many African American veterans returned to the United States determined to achieve the right and the prerogative to fulfill citizenship. The civil rights movement involved many different strategies and approaches, including legal actions and nonviolent civil disobedience. And we know during the civil rights movement, we know they had this nonviolent movement that took place, this nonviolent civil disobedient movement, and that was something that was particularly different between the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, and we'll get more into that in the presentation. Here you have the civil rights movement, which was the integrationists. You have the Black Power movement, which was the separatists, right here. So you had from the 1940s, you had the civil rights movement, right? In the civil rights movement, we fought for justice, equality, freedom, and etc. We also wanted to integrate with those who have oppressed us, you know, and me in particular, I feel like we lost confidence in ourselves. I'm just only speaking for myself, but I feel like we, in a sense, we lost who we were, and we wanted to be accepted by those who have oppressed us. And I always have this saying that we hate the conditions we in, but we love the people who put us in this condition. So during this movement, we wanted to integrate. We feel like that they had, even though we was lacking of certain type of resources, when we go to look into our public school systems, some of our school systems didn't have libraries. Some of our school systems didn't have proper running water period. Some of our faculties didn't even have sanitized or even restrooms for the students. We know that I think about 40 at that time. We know about $40 or $46 was going toward the education per person in the Black community, and $126 at that particular time for every white person. So they had more resources, more funds, and etc. What we should have been fighting for, instead of wanting to integrate and have what they have. But the civil rights movement was, we wanted to integrate. The Black Power movement, as I have down here, was separatist. We wanted to be separate. We didn't want to beg them for nothing. We wanted to create our own. We wanted to buy from our own. We wanted to support our own. We wanted to teach our own. Here you have Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. This meeting was the first time, only time following the former's press conference in Washington, D.C. And this was March the 26th, 1964. So you have here
Kobe, did you just go mute? Kofi, we can't hear nothing you saying if you talking. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Brother Kofi Pie had dropped out for a second. Stay tuned because he will be right back. May have an internet connection. Peace to the chat. Everybody that's tuned in. Looks like I'm gonna be running point guard for a second. So he was speaking about the only time that Malcolm and Martin, brothers Malcolm and Martin met our ancestors. This is kind of crucial as a part of that movement had taken place. Wish there were more meetings, however. I do think that he was making a good point up until the fact that he dropped off. Could be a storm in the area or something crazy. So please, again, y'all like the show, share the show. You know what I'm saying? Tell a friend, tell a friend. We're going to get this thing back on schedule. Let me see if I can pull up my presentation real quick. I got an old one with this information. I don't want no dead silence, man. So just hang tight. Yeah, excuse the kid in the background. He extra hype. I don't want to go with that one. Birth of extremism. Black voter. Rebirth of Black Power. Let me see. Hold on, y'all. He coming back. Yeah, I figured your computer froze. But while we waiting on him to come back, because I don't want to break where he was at. He was at a good part in the conversation. Let me pull up the black voter suppression from the 19th century. I believe during this critical moment in history, you know, as far as these conversations and these meetings and things like that, I think that all goes back to the black vote as well. Voter suppression was also a part of this whole game that people were playing with, and people wanted to protect the initiative to be able to vote and do the things that needed to be done. I don't know if y'all can recall Bloody Sunday or whatnot, which was, 1965, the Selma to Montgomery March. More than 509 violent civil rights marches. They were attacked by the law, and that was a form of voter suppression, and that spawned a whole bunch of militancy and so forth that would come about. Notice every time that they actually had did something in the 60s that went against us or whatnot, or were trying to suppress us or whatnot, our ancestors countered that with some type of protest that would show them that they would not back down. I don't think that same energy they had in the 60s we have today. I think that kind of going from there, we could learn a lot from the struggle. Rather, some people would argue the violence versus non-violent approach. I just think we get their attention if we're violent toward them like they are toward us. More, I don't know if that's the right way. I'm just saying in general, just my hypothesis on that. But hold on, I'm gonna have to switch how I got on to this hangout, because I got on my iPad and y'all can't see nothing that I'm pulling up right now. Which I think is critical to the conversation, but I really wanted him to finish on this part. I've done too many presentations. So I'm gonna pull up a little bit from an article that I wrote. If y'all don't have it, man, get it. You know what I mean? The Rebirth of Black Power in White America. I wrote this. It's in the journal in Killmonger's Corner journal, and I think that a lot of people, if you get our journal, you have articles by me, Kofi Sanel, Asar Motep, Baba Baruti, Sister Alima, and more. If you get that, you can get some type of perception of where I'm coming from in that article. Again, the title of it is The Rebirth of Black Power and White America. I don't know, if I was nice enough to make Kofi's presentation. But, you know what I'm saying?
Say what now? I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, I hear you sounding like a muffler. Nah, you good, bro. You still alive. So
yeah, man. I
one
don't
thing
know.
about this Zoom, you can't kick us out.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, man. I'll jump back into it.
Vasa is asking where's the mic option? Okay, Kofi, you got to give Vasa some rights.
Okay, hold on.
He's an attendee. He is not on the panelist list.
I thought I put him on that thing he got me, but he's in there now, Brother Vasa. Brother Vasa.
There we go.
Yeah, I see him now. He got his mic.
Yeah. Nice to have you on the panel, brother.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been MIA.
Oh, it's all good, man. You know why?
Been busy with these kids.
Yeah.
I just got back from grocery shopping and seen y'all was on and seen the invitation this time, so I jumped in.
Yeah. Sean, you wanna continue where you was at? I already know where I stopped at.
No, brother, I was just conversating up until the point that you could get back so you can go forward. Because I didn't I want to keep people right there in the realm of Malcolm and Martin meeting for the first time.
Okay.
And having a conversation. So we need to, catch up to that.
All right, let's go back. Hold on, let me go back. Y'all sorry about that too, man. My computer froze up. All I could see was any Harriet Sean, and I turned to he talking, and I'm completely jumped off the panel. But hold on, let me pull this presentation back up. We'll get back into it. Hold on. Let's see. I'm with you, Sean. I got too many damn PowerPoint. All right, it's pulling back up now. It's not complicated, man. You need to go on and download that thing and quit playing and jump in, Sutek. And
Sutek Triple, yeah, all you do is download the thing, man, create you just like you did YouTube, but like you did Google Hangout. It's the same. Download the app, create your username, and you in there. That's it. It ain't no difficult.
Yeah, and brothers and neighbors, you want to jump in here, man? Feel free, man, to jump up in here, man. Get in here. Go ahead, Tudor. All right, y'all. Let me. Close. Oh, I hope this thing ain't. All right, there we go. Let me go back to sharing my screen now. I thought it had done messed up my darn PowerPoint. Okay. All right. Am I sharing my screen or y'all still see my ugly face? Share screen. Okay. All right. Let me go back to where I left off at. It wouldn't even let me change my slides while ago neither. Okay. Let's go back. Well, we'll just go back a little bit right here where I talked about the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. I'm not gonna touch on what I touched on. Go all through. But again, like I said, you had one movement that deal with the integrationists, and the Black Power movement deal with separatists. One group wanted to integrate, another group did not want it to continue to be separated, did not want to integrate with those who have oppressed them. Then I showed the picture. Hold on, man. The picture of the great Malcolm and brother Martin Luther King meeting in March the 22nd in Washington, D.C. And again, you have one ancestor on the left, which is Martin Luther King, who was integrationist. But then later on, I want to say this, though, I put out here, though, that later on, before his passing, his perception began to change. And an interview that he had, he said that he believed that he has integrated his people into a burning house. So he kind of started to see that possibly he have made a mistake by pushing this integrationist thing during the civil rights movement. Then again, you have Martin Luther King again, not Martin Luther King, but another great ancestor, Malcolm X, who was a separatist and was a part of the Black Power movement with the organization that he was with, the Nation of Islam. So now what is Black Power? Now, Black Power is a political slogan and a name for various associate ideologies aimed at achieving self-determination for people of African descent. I'll read that again. Black Power is a political slogan and a name for a various associated ideologies aimed at achieving self-determination for people of African descent. It is used primarily, but not exclusively, by African Americans in the United States. Black Power. Black Power expresses a range of political goals from defense against racial oppression to the establishment of social institutions and self-sufficient economics, including Black-owned bookstores, cooperatives, forums, and medias. However, the movement was criticized for alienating itself from the mainstream civil rights movement, for it appears support of racial segregation for the constituting Black superiority over other races. And during that particular time, you had some people in the civil rights movement that was not particularly fond of the Black Power movement that started to take place. All right, the origin of Black Power. Though the actual phrase Black Power did not come into widespread uses until 1966, the ideal underlying Black Power were not new. I'm gonna repeat that. Though the actual phrase Black Power did not come into widespread uses until the 1966, the ideal underlying Black Power were not new. So the term or the ideology of Black Power was not new, but we know that it became popularized in 1966, the slogan Black Power. And the movement started to take place after that, but we'll get more into that through the presentation. The idea, as early as the 1940s, Asa Philip Rudolph, an African-American labor activist, and he was a labor activist as well as a civil rights activist, called for a march on Washington to pressure President Franklin D. Roosevelt to outlaw racial discrimination in federal employment. So he organized and strategized, say he was a part of the labor movement or the labor activist movement for unfair wages for Black people in America. So he organized and strategized and put together this thing where he was able to get the president to pass an order. I think it was Act 8802, if I'm not mistaken, but I got it on the next slide or whatever. All right, to outlaw racial discrimination in federal employment. Rudolph envisioned the march as an all-Negro movement that would inculcate a sense of self-reliance. So right here you see where he was putting together an all-Negro, not a mixture, because when we're going to go back, we're going to touch, bro. We started with the civil rights movement, and we're into the Black Power, but we're going to kind of go back and forward because I want to show you some of the guys that was a part of the civil rights movement became some of the key players in the Black Power movement. And we know when we looked at a definition, which was a definition that I gave by Stokely Carmichael in his book, Black Power, his definition, as well as another scholar in 2015 that also has a book called Black Power, something I can't remember it neither, but I have it in a reference for those that may want to check out those two books. So we know that Black Power is not, it's for self, you know what I'm saying, self-sufficient, self-reliance, self-respect, self-gain, self-important,
So you can see right here where Asa Rudolph, a civil rights activist, and also Molif Kente Ashante also wrote that Asa Philip Rudolph was one of his favorite civil rights activists during that time, because this brother did a whole lot. Y'all look this brother up, Asa Philip Rudolph. But anyway, he started this all Negro movement. And again, if you look at the civil rights movement, and we're going to talk about some of those organizations that was in a civil rights movement, but then became a part of the Black Power movement. And at first they had white European counterparts in the organization with them. Now, Rudolph, he started as self-reliant. He started his own Negro movement, a sense of self-reliance, breaking down the slave psychology and the inferiority complex in the Negro, which comes in and nourished with the Negro relying on white people for the direction and the support. And this is why I say I believe that during the civil rights movement, I'm grateful for the civil rights movement and what our ancestors was able to achieve in the civil rights movement. But in some sense, I feel like that they didn't, we kind of gave up on ourselves. We wanted to be accepted by those that didn't accept us. We wanted to be a part of what those people had. We believed that they were better than we were, so we wanted to have what they have. We wanted to rely on them and not rely on ourselves. And it's still going on today. We are relying on the very same people who are murdering our kids in the streets. We are the same system that our ancestors had during the civil rights movement. We have progressed a little, but we still have an outrate of Black individuals in the prison system that is working for pennies on the dollar. So through Random himself schemed Black nationalism, the goal of self-reliance and racial pride would become a key component in the Black Power ideology. So you can see right here that during the 1940s, Rudolph was already putting into practice this Black Power ideology. Now, this is Asa Philip Rudolph. And again, I'm not going to read this. It's just a little information here. But he also, with the order, yes, 88, the executive order of 8802, where he was able to stop in the industry, stopping discrimination and the poor wages in the job, for jobs. When he also was able to pass another executive order by another different president, where it was discrimination in the military, which he passed it. I still don't. They passed an executive order. I forgot the executive order 9981 was that executive order to kind of stop segregation in the armed service. But I worked for the government for 10 years, and I still see some of the segregational practices. When I worked for them for 10 years, I worked for a military base for 10 years, and I deal with a lot of the supply sergeants, the master sergeants, the lieutenants, and etc. So I do see some of those practices that was practiced back then or still practiced today in the armed services. In 1963, Rudolph was no, I'm not going to read that, but like I said, look up if y'all not familiar with Asa Philip Rudolph. But he is the one that kind of started to put the Black Power. And this was in the 1940s now. The 1940s, the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement. Because I think the Civil Rights Movement, I think, started to transpire, take legs around 1946, somewhere around in there. So he was already putting in this Black Power ideology of self-reliance, self-respect, self-empowering, you know what I'm saying, doing for ourselves, you know what I'm saying, it's excluding only us and no one else, getting ourselves together. The origin of Black Power, Richard Nathan Wright, September the 4th, 1908 through November the 28th, 1960, was an African-American author and a novelist. Hold on, let me make sure I didn't skip. Okay. novelist, short stories, poems, and nonfiction, Richard Wright, published a book called Black Power in 1954. So there you see again the term Black Power before you even get to the 60s, when the late 60s, around 1966, 1967, where the Black Power phrase and then the Black Power movement and the Black Power ideology started to take place. So now you see here, 1954, by Richard Nathan Wright. He published a book called Black Power, and this individual is an individual, and I'll speak about him too in a little bit more in a minute. A non-fictional chronicle traveling to Africa on the Gold Coast, the country that will become Ghana. And this brother, well, I'll speak about him a little bit right now because I ain't gonna go into I'll show the next slide, but I'm not gonna read it. But this brother lives in Roxy, Mississippi, which is about 15 minutes away from me. I actually passed a little small town yesterday as I was traveling to Natchez, and it's also close to Natchez where I was going. So a little town called Roxy, 15 minutes away from me. He was born and raised there for a period of time, and 15 minutes away from me. He's a Mississippi boy. Richard Nathaniel, like the slide said, his brother was highly intelligent. He wrote a lot of novels, short stories, poems, non-fictional books. He wrote, he was a playwright as well, but he moved from Roxy and his family moved to Arkansas. And from Arkansas, brother Richard moved from Arkansas and they moved to Jackson, Mississippi, which is 45 minutes away from me, moved to Jackson, Mississippi. And a lot of y'all may know about Jackson, Mississippi. They may not be in Jackson, Mississippi. If you study the Freedom Riders, you know what I'm saying, and you study Stokely Carmichael, you'll know a little bit about Jackson and some of its racial practices and a lot of things that transpired in Jackson, Mississippi, back in those days. But and also he went from Jackson to Memphis, close to where brother Sean is at. He moved, and then from Memphis he went to Chicago, and from Chicago he went to France, and then he started to travel abroad, and he went into Africa, and he was inspired by the president of Ghana, that became the president of Ghana at that time. He was also fighting for their independence at this particular time, Nkrumah. And that would inspire him to write the book in 1940, Black Power, because he traveled to the Gold Coast. He traveled to Ghana during that particular time. All right. Wright journey underscore a significant of ties between African. And what's so funny is when I go back into it is some of the individuals that I work with stay in Roxy, stay in Franklin County, stay in Natchez, stay in Magnolia, stay in Macomb, surrounding areas of Roxy, Mississippi. They have no clue about this brother. They have a historical mark in Roxy for this brother, but it's funny that a lot of people do not know about this brother, Richard Nathaniel Wright. But going back into it in Wright journey underscored the significant ties between Africans and African Americans and the centrality of the decolonization of Black Power ideology. In the 1950s and the 1960s, African countries were becoming independent after decades of European colonial rule. We talked a lot about that today, and brother Any Harriet Sean California presentation on Kofi, I'm not Kofi, but on Mossy Warrior Clan channel, which was a great presentation / build, and I recommend that y'all go back in the archives later on, or when y'all get some free time, to check out that presentation by my good brother. African American thinkers like Richard Wright and later Malcolm X drew a connection between the struggles of Americans to overthrow the remaining vestige of colonial oppressions, and the struggle of African Americans to overcome the white power structure in the United States. Here is a picture of our good ancestor, our good brother, Richard Nathaniel Wright, who wrote a book called Black Power in 1954, before the Black Power phrase was popularized, before the Black Power ideology set forth. And this is a picture of him again. Like I said, he was expired when he went to Ghana by Kwame Nkrumah, who was fighting at that time for Ghana to reach its independence, and then he became the president of Ghana. So he was expired when he went to the homeland, and that inspired him to write the book Black Power. All right, Malcolm X, also known as El Haj Malik El Shabazz. This was another key player in the Black Power movement, our late great ancestor Malcolm X. The origin of Black Power, Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, led by Elijah Muhammad, born Elijah Poole. The Nation of Islam, also known as the Black Muslims, had existed since the 1930s. Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little, became acquainted with Elijah Muhammad and the teachings of the Nation of Islam while serving time for Berkeley at the Norfolk Prison Colony of Massachusetts. We know this is where he got introduced into Islam and the teachings of the Quran. After the expiration of his parole, he became involved with the Nation of Islam, serving as a missionary on a visit to the Middle East and Africa in 1959, and becoming a minister of Mosque Number 7 in Harlem. Malcolm X's fiery rhetoric and charismatic presence gained the Nation of Islam many new adherents in the late 1950s and the early 1960s. The Nation of Islam advocated Black self-empowerment. So there you see it again, self-empowerment, self-reliance. This was the ideology, and again, you started to see this before the 60s. You started to see this with Asa Philip Rudolph. You started to see this with Richard Nathaniel Wright. Then you started to see it with the Nation of Islam, and then you started to see it grow more legs during the 1966 and 1967, and you started to see other different groups of Black Power movements started to pop up everywhere. Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little, became rhetoric and charismatic presence gained the Nation of Islam many adherents in the late 1950s and the early 1960s. The Nation of Islam advocated Black self-empowerment and self-reliance, as well as a cultural and racial pride. The most famous Black Muslims was undoubtedly the heavyweight boxer Cassius Clay, who changed his name to Muhammad Ali after converting. All right, our brother Stokely Carmichael, who later changed his name to Kwame Ture, who was inspired by two people in Africa. I think both know Kwame Ture expired Stokely Carmichael. Kwame expired Stokely, as well as I think it was his advisor, who name was Ture. I can't think of his full name at this particular time, who expired him. So he merged both of the names and came up with Kwame Ture. But our brother Stokely Carmichael, who was a civil rights activist and who changed his perspective later on. Our brother Stokely Carmichael walked with brother Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement. Our brother Stokely Carmichael was also a part of a lot of civil rights movement. Brother Stokely Carmichael was a part of the first organization I think he was particularly a part of was the CORE. And we'll talk about the CORE in a minute, but he was a part of the CORE civil rights movement. He was also a part of the Freedom Riders. He was arrested in Jackson, Mississippi. That's why I say if y'all follow Stokely Carmichael's story or the Freedom Rider stories, you will know a little bit about Jackson when they took that freedom ride to Jackson when they was they was trying to boycott it was the buses at this time, you know what I'm saying? Segregation at the bus stops and etc. And there was something else that was going down in Jackson why the Freedom Riders was there. But Stokely Carmichael was thrown into jail for a short period of time, maybe a month, a little over a month. He was a college student at this particular time too. Stokely Carmichael was also a part of the student nonviolence, the SNCC civil rights movement, and later became head of that civil rights movement. And and particularly the students' nonviolence. And it was changed later on. We'll see why he changed the nonviolent part. But again, Stokely Carmichael was a civil rights activist in the beginning. Stokely Carmichael was the person who also, let's just go into it. In June 1966, Stokely Carmichael, a student of the nonviolence coordinating communities, shouted the word Black Power in an address to the freedom rallies in Greensburg, Mississippi. The incident reflected the increased militance of the group of the SNCC and the Corps. Now, the Corps and the SNCC both were civil rights movement. Both movements, the civil rights movements, Stokely Carmichael was a part of. The first movement he was a part of was the Corps, the Freedom Riders, and then the SNCC. And a lot of those SNCC, they deal with going out and recruiting people to vote, you know what I'm saying, to come out and vote at the polls, setting up voting registrations, all, and we'll get a little bit more into that later on in the presentation, because they were a civil rights movement. But we're going to see what happened and why their perspective changed. Okay, so in Greensburg, Mississippi, this is where he shouted out the phrase Black Power. This is where it became popular at, and this was not even long after Stokely Carmichael became head of the students. A week later, after he became the head of the Students Nonviolence Coordinated Community, where he went on this march with this individual that we're going to talk about, where they stopped in Greenwood, and he made this elaborate speech, and his phrase became popular, and his movement sprung legs from this. The incident reflected increasing militance of the group like SNCC and the Corps, which had previously adhered to nonviolent civil disobedience. In June 1966, Jane Metternich, a civil rights activist who had been the first Black student attending the University of Mississippi, embarked a solitary walk against fear from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. So now you see the word Jackson, Mississippi again. About 20 miles into Mississippi, Metternich was shot and wounded severely to continue. Carmichael decided that the SNCC volunteers should carry on the march in his place. And upon reaching Greenwood, Mississippi in June 16, an enraged Carmichael gave an address for which he would forever be best remembered. We've been saying freedom for 6 years, he said. We were going to start saying now Black Power. The phrase Black Power quickly caught on as a rally cry of younger, more radical generations of the civil rights activists. The term also resonated internationally, becoming a slogan and a resistance to the European imperialism in Africa. So this was not only an African-American phrase, but this became a slogan or a phrase worldwide. In 1968, in his 1968 book, Black Power, this is a Stokely Carmichael book, where I quoted what he said Black Power mean. This was the definition when I said, what is Black Power? I gave you his definition, Stokely Carmichael definition, as well as another scholar name that's escaping my mind at this particular time.
That's Charles Hamilton, Kofi.
Yeah, Charles Hamilton. Yeah, because Charles Hamilton actually helped him wrote this book here, Black Power, The Political Liberation. Carmichael explained the meaning of Black Power. It is a call for Black people in this country to unite, to recognize their heritage, to build a sense of community. It is called for the Black people to define their own goals, to lead their own organizations. So at this particular time, they fed up. The younger generation is completely fed up at this particular time. They no longer wanted to find their own goals. They wanted their own organizations, because most of the civil rights organizations, they had white members. They had white members. The Corps civil rights movement had white members. The SNCC had white members. The Freedom Rider had white members. Some of the other particular civil rights movement had white counterparts with them in their movement. So now they're one of their own organizations, their own. But Asa Philip Rudolph was already talking about this when he started his own Negro labor activist movement in the early 40s, when he was combating for segregation in the armed service, when he was combating unfair pay wages in the work system. Now here I talked about the march. James Meterit, who was marching for the march on fear, where he was marching from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. And this is some of the participants here. And now they are in Canton, which is about 20 minutes away from Jackson, Mississippi. They have started to carry on the march after the brother who actually started the march or organized the march got shot. And this is the brother who got shot right here. The movement takes up the march to Jackson from a spot where Meterit was gunned down. So this is the brother Meterit, who was also the first Black student at the University of Mississippi. He was also a civil rights activist who organized this Walk on Fear movement from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. And they shot this brother down where he was not able to go along and partake in the march that he organized on fear. Now, this is the picture here. This is in Greenwood, Mississippi. This is in 1966. The angry Stokely Carmichael, who was a civil rights movement, who begins to start to change the civil rights movement, and who was also a part of the new generation as well, who became more radical. So this is here in Greenwood, where our late great brother Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, who gave this powerful speech and started saying, for now on, we've been talking about freedom, of calling out freedom for 6 or 7 years. From now on, we're gonna call out Black power. So, and this is where this phrase began to take popularity, and it spread it worldwide. Now it was no longer just an African-American thing, but they were shouting over there in the motherland against colonialism. Here is Brother Stokely Carmichael again here with the late great Martin Luther King. And again, like I said, he was in Stokely Carmichael was in a lot of different civil rights movement, participated in a lot of civil rights movements, feet boots to the ground. This young brother was, and began to change his perspective. And like I said, right after he became the head over the SNCC, he changed it from nonviolence to, I think, national, because now it's that nonviolence thing is out the door. So now we got to start to protect ourselves. Now we're going to fight back against those who attacked us. We're not going to turn the other cheek anymore and look at them just continue to sick the dogs on our people, to spray the fire hoses on our people, to beat our people upside the head with billy clubs. We no longer going to accept that anymore. Here is an organization, also the Laundry civil rights movement that he had started before he became head of the SNCC, and his logo was the was a panther, and they said this logo was inspirational or inspired the Black Panther Party. So I wanted to show you a few clippings of here, and again, his Laundry organization and the SLCC was an organization rally around votes. Their duty was to go and recruit people to vote, and also set up get people registered to vote, and etc. So here is a card here back in the day where you can see Brother Stokely Carmichael's logo here with the panther, and here the Laundry County FOs, this is what they was doing, registered to voting. This was 2 years ago. There were Negroes registered today after the SNC initiated the registration drive. The LCFO and the registration over 2,600, and during this particular time, I think the registering people was very low until Brother Stokely Carmichael got involved with this organization and then created his own organization and to register people. I think one year, the voting process, you had more blacks participated ever voting at a particular time. Then you have different snippets here of the Laundry County organization that Brother Stokely Carmichael with, his logo, the Panther on it. This is before the Black Panther Party now. Here is another coup to register right. I just want to throw this up. One man, one vote. Here's Brother Stokely Carmichael's logo here for the Laundry County group that he had, this civil rights group that he had. Now, the Black Panther parties of the 60s. And I put that for a particular reason. We know we got the new Black Panther Party, and we know later on, the early 70s, the perspective of the Black Panther Party begins to change. It's no longer Black power. It became power to the people. It's not Black power. It was power to the people. And they changed that phrase for a particular reason. And then they also had a Korean or a Japanese or someone at that particular time, and I understand why they did. He wasn't white. And a lot of things that was going on at that particular time. So I understood why they, I don't know, was he Vietnamese or Korean, whatever he was, but they had a non-black member that was a member of the Black Panther. This was later on, but we talk about the Black Panther Party of the 60s, the late 60s. The Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party is a self-defense, was founded in 1966 in Oakland, California by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seals, who issued a 10-point program demanding, among other things, freedom, employment, and the immediate end to police brutality. So this is not a new thing. A lot of our people think this is a new thing, especially some of our youth think this is a new thing, police brutality, but this has been going on forever. And we can see the Black Panther Party was also, well, we're going to talk about another group too in a minute that a lot of people don't give credit to, don't even speak about these people. But I'm going to speak about them. I spoke about them in the past when I first started about 3 years ago on a Facebook, when I first started going live on Facebook and before I started doing presentations. But Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, who issued a 10-point program demanding, among other things, freedom, right, employment, and immediate end to police brutality. The Black Panthers gained notoriety when, in the spring of 1967, its gun-toting members staged a protest at the state capitol against the gun control bill then being debated by the California state legislature. The Black Panther espoused a military form of black self-defense and functioned as a local militant, taking advantages of open carrying gun laws and patrol black neighborhoods in the Oakland order and prevented police harassments and brutality. Now we just sit around and watch them come in and just shoot our babies and beat our young females down. Now we just get a camera and video camera. Now we just sit back and watch now and post it. Black Panther expounds on militants from the black self-defense and function of local militants taking advantage of the open carrying gun laws to patrol black neighborhoods in Oakland in order to prevent police harassments and brutality. The Panthers also provided community service such as free breakfast for the children, drugs and alcohol rehabilitative programs, self-defense classes, and free medical clinics and child care centers. And you see all of these things that the Black Panther Party provided, right? All positive things that they was doing in their community. They was trying to protect their community from police brutality and the Ku Klux Klan and any opposition to our community. They was also giving back, you know what I'm saying, like I said, free breakfast for the kids, rehabilitation center, rehabilitation programs for our folks that may have fallen victim to drugs and alcohol, self-defense classes for those that may wanted to learn how to protect themselves, how to use firearms, and etc. Free medical clinic, you know what I'm saying, a child care center if you needed to go to work. So these guys were doing groundwork. And you can see how when a lot of people mention the Black Panther Party, Black Power, all this sort of types of things, they look at it and they frowned upon these organizations that was doing great work for our community. Large due to the Panthers' militants' rhetoric and armed self-defense, the state of California imposed structures on opening and carrying gun laws by the FBI employs its counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, to combat what was perceived as the Black Panther Party subversion threatened to American democracy. Now, here is two members of a Black Panther Party here in California, at the state the capital, and this is Sacramento. Two brothers being confronted by the police, and they're also, they're carrying their guns, and they're standing their ground. All right, now we know during the Black Power movement, we know of these guys with these black berets, these black leather jackets, these black or blue shirts, these black pants and black boots, carrying these assault rifles, handguns, and etc. These guys who was protecting in their community. These guys didn't mess around and play around, right? And this was in the 1967 when the Black Panther Party was started during the Black Power movement, when the Black Power movement started to kick off in the late 1966, right? But no one talks about the Deacon of Defense. Now, it's not as many pictures on the Deacon of Defense. This picture that I have particularly here, they did a movie in 2005. This from the Showtime movie from the Deacons of Defense. You can see these brothers here with rifles, and this is before the Black Panther Party. You had black brothers before the Black Panther Party that was protecting their community from the Ku Klux Klan, police brutality, and these guys was organized. These guys, the Deacons of Defense, or the Deacons of Defense for Justice, was organized to protect the people during the Civil Rights Movement. But we think that that in the Civil Rights Movement, you only had people that was getting whooped, you know what I'm saying, and turning the other cheek and letting people beat them, and we didn't protect our damn selves. That's false. You had the Deacon of Defense that was what's the name, but you can say they was eventually, people associate them particularly with the Black Panther Party. I'm not the Black Panther Party, but with the Black Power movement. But these brothers was before the Black Power movement, and these guys protected some of our civil rights activists, civil rights organizations, and protected their community and expanded. Here is an original picture. Here are some of the Deacons of Defense here. On July the 10th, 1964, a group of African-American men, this is in Johannesburg, Louisiana, led by Ernest Chill Willie Thomas and Frederick Douglass Kirkpatrick, founded the group known as the Deacons for Defense and Justice. You hear it says 1964. 1964. This is before 1966. This is before 1967. The Deacons of Defense Justice to protect members of the Congress of Racial Equality. This was the first group that Stokely Carmichael John was the core. The Congress of Racial Equality. This was a civil rights movement who later became a part of the Black Panther, not the Black Panther, became part of the Black Power movement. They was no longer moving in the direction of the civil rights movement, but in the direction of the Black Power movement. Self-respect, self-empowerment, self-reliance, having their own organization, because this organization was also founded on a college dorm with a white and a black member. Against the Ku Klux Klan violence. Most of the Deacons were veterans of World War II and the Korean War. The Johannesburg chapter organized the first affiliated chapter in the nearby Bogalusa, Mississippi, led by Charles Sims, Aza Young, and Robert Hicks. Eventually, they organized a third chapter in Louisiana. The Deacons' tense confrontations with the Klan in Bogalusa was crucial in forcing a federal government to intervene on behalf of the local African-American community. The national attempt to garnish also persuaded a state of national official to initial effort to neutralize the Klan in the areas of the Deep South. The Deacons emerged as the first visible self-defense. The Deacons emerged as the first visible self-defense force in the South, and such represented a new face of the civil rights movement. Now, again, they were the first with the self-defense. They were the first that you see toting these heavy artillery. They were the first in the community protecting, and they was the first that didn't play. They was the first that wouldn't watch nothing. They gonna shoot first. They didn't care. They didn't care. Their thing was to protect, and their thing was also that they prided off of the founding fathers of the Deacon of Defense for Justice. It had to be on the grounds when they was there. They particularly became sort of a bodyguards for the civil rights movement. They got tired of watching some of our great elders being beat to death. You know what I'm saying? Or every time they're protesting, you know what I'm saying, the police is out there spraying mace, the fire department out there spraying the hoses, being whooped with billy clubs, the police department sicking the dogs on them, and etc. So they wanted to start to protect those civil rights organizations as well, and they fought or they protected while they was there. Their thing was never for something to happen, for me to be out there in a peaceful protest in my organization, and then we be attacked by the police or by some radical European group, and then they come in and they go back and retaliate. No, that was not their thing. They was there to protect when it was there on the grounds. They never went back after the incident happened to try to go back and do something to somebody that may have harmed somebody in the community. They always had to be right there at that particular time. All right. South represented a new face for the civil rights movement. Traditional civil rights organization remained silent on them, repudiated their activities. They were effective, however, in providing protection for local African Americans who sought to register to vote, and for white and black civil rights workers in the area. The Deacons, for example, provided security for the 1966 March against the fear of Memphis to Jackson. So they was also there when Stokely Carmichael, the SNCNC, the Corps, Dr. Martin Luther King was participating in this march from Memphis to Jackson, Mississippi. This march against fear in 1966, and we know that the Stokely Carmichael popularized this phrase "Black Power" in Greenwood, Mississippi, before they reached Jackson, Mississippi, during this march. Moreover, the presence and the Deacons of Defense was there also to protect. They became in. This was a time that Martin Luther King. This was discussed now, and during this time, Martin Luther King, I guess he said, "Hey, after Merritt, the guy who actually organized, strategized, and got this march started, the March Against Fear, right? Okay, let's bring these guys in, toting these guns to protect us." And we already know what these guys gonna do, because we already been witnesses and seeing what the police and these other Europeans are doing to us, because we want freedom, justice, and equality, and etc. Right? So Martin Luther King and all these other organizations, civil rights, they agreed to have the Deacons of Defense there to protect them, along to make the march successful. Moreover, the presence of the Southeastern Louisiana meant that the Klan would no longer be able to intimidate and terrorize local African Americans without a challenge. All right, here is the one of the groups that I told you Stokely Carmichael joined, the Congress of Racial Equality. This was one of the first groups that he joined. This was the march in Washington, D.C. This was on the 27th. This was 1963. But again, the Corps became part of the Black Power movement. They was once a part of the Civil Rights movement, and then became a part of the Black Power movement, as well as the SNCC movement that Stokely Carmichael was a part of. I think is the Students Nonviolence Coordinated Committee became the Students National after Stokely Carmichael became the lead and started to say, hey, bump the civil rights movement. We finna start protecting ourselves. We finna start having things for our own self. We finna build up our own, protect our own, do for our own, provide for our own, and etc. So here is just the group here. The Corps was founded by a group of white and black students. Thing popped up here, internet within unstable. And I think sometimes when that thing pop up on there, I start sounding like a robot. Am I good before I go any further? Y'all let me know. Am I good?
Bill, you good?
All right. Okay, so the Corps was founded by a group of white and black students on the campus of the University of Chicago. This was in 1942. Its founder had been active and interfaith Pacific's fellowships, the reconciliation, and drew inspiration from the Mahatma Gandhi practices, and you can see that they drew some of the civil rights movement. I think that they didn't have enough information on Gandhi at this particular time, and you can see that a lot of civil rights activists, including Martin Luther King, drew some of their inspiration from this guy Gandhi. But this guy Gandhi, as I did some research on him some years ago, he wasn't he did a lot of and said a lot of negative things about us in regards to. So look Gandhi up, but you'll see that a lot of the civil rights movement drawn a lot of inspiration from him. And I think they also have a statue of him down in Atlanta at the Martin Luther King Museum or whatever that. I had never been to the thing down there, whatever that is that they got down there dedicated to Martin Luther King. I think they have a statue of Gandhi there as well. But practices of nonviolent civil disobedience. Corps sent some of its members to help in the Montgomery bus boycott and support students sit-ins in lunch counters across the South when we're talking about the Freedom Riders. Corps activists also contributed to the Corps voters registration drives in the Deep South that became the focus of the civil rights movement in the late 1961s, and contributing to the voters education registration drive during 1963 and 1964 in Mississippi and elsewhere. Corps co-sponsored the 1963 March on Washington for the Jobs and Freedoms that gathered in some 250,000 Americans, at which Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech. Corps is just their logo, the Congress of Racial Equality, who were a civil rights, was part of the civil rights movement and then became a part of the Black Power movement. Here is now I'm just showing. I'll kind of try to walk y'all through from the 1940s to the 1960s. Try to give y'all some information on a few groups that y'all may not be familiar with, or may have forgotten about, or a few individuals, like I said, that y'all may have not known about, like Asa Philip Rudolph, who actually started putting the practices of Black Power. Started putting the practice of Black Power in the 1940s, and then you see Richard Nathaniel Wright with his book Black Power, who was inspired by Kwame Nkrumah when he visited Ghana in 1954 and wrote his book Black Power, and some of the groundwork he started doing after his trip to Africa, and etc. Some of the great works he did he was a great author, novelist, playwright. So check out some of his books, the Black Power book, the Black, man, it's a few books, man. I got 3 of his books on the shelf in there. But here, and then this is these, I just wanted to go down through that with them, the civil rights movement, because again, like I said, there will be no Black Power movement without the civil rights movement, and a lot of the civil rights movement, preferably the young people who were at the forefront of the civil rights movement, as time progressed, they no longer wanted to integrate. They no longer wanted to sit and turn the other cheek as they get whooped to sleep. their family members whooped to sleep or even killed. So and then Brother Stokely Carmichael, because we know he was the one that actually popularized the phrase, but it did not start with Stokely Carmichael in 1966. It actually started, you started to see this in 1940, 1954, 1954, 1964 with self-protection, not with the Black Panther Party, because the Black Panther Party didn't start until 1967, but you started to see the Deacons of Defense that started to tote these guns, teach these self-defense classes, protect their community from the Klansmen, police brutality, and etc. But these are some of the images that you started to see, the youth that started to see. You see here that they got tired and they wanted to start protecting themselves, etc. So here's the police. This is doing a civil rights protest. Protest here. You see the young brother by the police here. Here's another image you get here. This is in Jackson, Mississippi, 45 minutes away from me. You know, a brother being kicked to sleep right here. And you see them. They loving it. Look at them. They just love it back there. Here's another image here. Dogs being sicked on them at this particular time. They got tired of this, so they got tired of it. So dogs being sicked on them. Right here. This is in Alabama. This is Birmingham, Alabama. Here, look at it. They carrying a sister out right here. Police carrying a sister out. She's in a peaceful protest. They just carrying her out, just dragging out. Here was another one here. They just choking out this brother here. Here's another one doing a protest here. This is in Alabama. This in Alabama, I think. Here's another. I told you they even had a fire department out there shooting the hoses on the family out there. This is in Birmingham. Here go another one. Here go a mob of them. You look at all them white men, and they is beating the skin. All them on one man. This is one of the freedom riders here. I think this brother here was critical, beaten to death. I think he was he was damn near beaten to death, man. These are my references here. Some of them from the books I drawn. Black Power. This is by Richard Wright. This is in 1954. This is brother Richard Nathaniel Wright. This is where you see where he's Wright Black Power. He was inspired when he went to Ghana. Black Power. This is Kwame Ture, known as Stokely Carmichael and Charles Hamilton, who wrote Black Power, the Politics of Liberation. The Deacons of Defense. I got that. Deacons of Defense. This is a book, Armed Resistance in the Civil Rights Movement by Lance Seal, which is a great book if you want to know more about Deacons of Defense. I mean, the Deacons of Defense or the Deacons of Defense of Justice, and they have the whole, I don't know if they still have it. I don't know, was DVDs out in 2015? I don't know. I know the movie came out in 2015. I don't know. You may be able to pull it up on YouTube and able to look at it, you know what I'm saying, and maybe learn from the movie, because I know some of our people just don't want to read it. When you talk about read, man, you talk about, you talk about you finna kill them, or you finna harm them or something. Most people make them ugly faces, and these are some of my other sources here at the bottom here. Anybody, y'all got anything on the panel, man? Anybody on your chat want to come on? Anybody got any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Good, Bill. I mean, I knew you were going with the Deacon of Defense when you started saying what you were saying related to people protecting the community. I mean, we probably can go back and pull from history other members that were similar to the Deacon of Defense who protected the community. They just didn't have a name like other people. So it was good that you brought them out, even though we knew that you was going to go there. Well, I knew you were going to go there. And you did a poor job of not reading my article in the journal because
and you know what? I ain't do a poor job. I hadn't read it. I hadn't read it. I hadn't read no one's article in the book. But I promise you, this week I'm gonna read the whole book. Actually,
Chanel,
this evening I'm
Chanel,
gonna read.
this brother is biased. He ain't read nobody article but his own, and that's
Look,
all he cared about.
I
Chanel,
ain't read my own article, man. I
Chanel,
looked at it. I ain't
Chanel,
read it. I ain't had
Chanel. I'm
whatever.
talking to Chanel, but I ain't talking to Kobe. I'm hijacking the channel and I'll come back talk about this dude when he
Whatever.
sleep and let him get up in the morning and watch it.
Yep.
This is horrible. Now I'm trashing the whole presentation.
It's all good.
I'm just playing.
Boss, you got anything, man? And I'm trying to look through the chat now and see if anybody got any questions. I ain't even looked at the thing.
No, I was gonna say, good show, and ask you in your research, did you see any mentioning of them may have possibly been influenced by an author by the name of Sutton E. Griggs, by any chances, who would write
Say his name
nonfiction?
again.
Sutton E. Griggs, Griggs. I want to say he maybe published his books maybe around 1890 to the 1920s. He would be an interesting person to tie in, because you can even tie in Wall Street with it, with how that incident caused the bankruptcy aspects of a lot of businesses, and it stopped him from being able to publish as much. But he was writing books that influenced the ideas of Black people collectively gaining power, not just freedom but power. And I think one of his nonfiction stories was centered around Black people taking over Texas, I think in Waco.
And you said this was like around the 18th, because he sound like, because if you look at some of Richard Wright.
Richard Wright. What I asked, what if there's an influence between them, because Richard Wright would use nonfiction to influence the youth, but deliver the message.
Right,
kind of
because
seed dropping.
Yeah, right, because he used like a lot of his experiences from Mississippi. That's why he moved so much too. Because I mean, he started right here in Roxy, Mississippi. He's seen a lot of racial things that go on, and stuff that he experienced with his family, even when they moved to Arkansas with his with his auntie, his mother's sister. Her husband, his mother's sister, husband was killed not too long after they arrived there by some white people, and they had to flee. They was in danger of their life, fear for their life at this time. So they ended up moving to from Arkansas, and they moved to Jackson, Mississippi. And like I said, if you Google Jackson, Mississippi, which ain't but 45 minutes away from me, Roxy is 20 minutes away from me, Natchez is 40 minutes away from me as well. But if you Google these places, particularly Jackson, man, you will see so much stuff that went on down in these little towns in the deep South and stuff. But he experienced so much, so he wrote novels and non-fictional books about his experience. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, and drop books. So I need that guy name, because I'm a definitely.
That's who I pull that quote from. It often requires more courage to read books than to fight a fight. I use him a lot, and just a FYI to the audience who might get discouraged by it. He was I don't know if he was a pastor or a preacher, how they separate the titles of that. But I don't let that bother me, because his overall concept was still Black people first, and talking about the plight of what we was going through, and how we already have the power to put ourselves where we needed to be. And he would use the nonfiction stories to kind of, draw that out, kind of, paint the narrative of how it could be. Even in 1890, creating situations where that happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta know how to get that name though from you, man. When I get out, I definitely want to check him out, because and it may be like you say, what's the name may have was drawing inspiration and pulling from and studying that brother. I mean, Richard Wright was actually studying that brother you was talking about that did those things in the during that period of time. So I definitely want to get that.
Yeah, and I bring him up because he's an interesting character to kind of throw out, based off, a couple of the current situations I'm hearing. Conversations I've heard. I've been busy, but I've been chiming into conversations where I can. How to proper label pseudos. I don't think it would be fair to use someone like him as a pseudo source when he was purposely using nonfiction. Was using fiction, but to give a different idea. If you get where I'm going, so I think that's one of them cool people we could use to kind of show how that can be done. And just tying everything else. So, but I don't want to get long-winded and off track of how things was going.
No, you good. So, you good.
Because I can't see who's on the panel. If anybody else wanted to speak.
You can't see who on the panel.
No, I only see your screen.
Oh, okay. Because I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, I'm finna stop sharing in just a second, man. Ain't nobody got no questions in the chat. Peace, Sister Cobb. I see Sister Cobb in here. She's been putting some information in our piece, sis. Sure.
I didn't know Charles Hamilton was from Oklahoma. He's supposed to have another book coming out soon where he's talking about South Africa and the politics there. I just can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah, peace to everybody, man, in the chat, man. Peace to everybody in the chat. But if nothing else, man, please, same spiel at the end of the show. Please subscribe to the channels. Please subscribe to the Seshuma Ani Melanetra group. We're a group of like-minded individuals who are aspiring to be true scribes. We are studying the language, which is called the Rani Kemet, and the writing script, which is called the Seshuma Melanetra, or what you may know as the hieroglyph. Please join our Facebook page, Seshuma Ani Melanetra. Also, go to our website, www.seshumaani.melanetra, where you can get the publication, beginner's course of the Seshuma Melanetra. If you want to take the class, you got a beginner course book, a textbook. If you want to learn how to write the sesh, Imicare has a book on there where you can purchase, as well as a 2016 book surrounding the debate. Has the Melanetra been deciphered? You can get that book that was collected, put together by the group on that website as well. Also subscribe to Kofi Pisces, the channel that takes a black man, black woman, and black child, Eurocentric mind, and Africanize it. So please subscribe to the channel if you have subscribed to the channel. Also, please subscribe to the Mossy Warrior Clan channel. Please also go to our like page. It's also Mossy Warrior Clan on Facebook, where there's a lot of information. Particularly now is more of the Sean clan, because he's actually posting more information than anybody else on it. Now I've been slacking these last 2 months, and I hadn't posted. I know it's been 2 months since I posted a shred of information on there. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to that soon. But check it out. Please subscribe to that channel. Also go back and check out the show Brother Sean did today, which was a powerful show, a great show. Great build. So please check that out today. Go check that out when you get some time or whatever. Anything on the Seshuma Ani Melanetra, go to the archives. Anything in Kofi Pisces TV, go to the archives, scroll through, check it out. Something that might, spark your fancy. Also, Mossy Warrior Clan. Go in the archives. We have plenty of great information in the archives on all of these channels. When y'all get some time, where y'all want to binge and get some great, powerful information without the foolery, the coonery, the foolishness, the bad behavior, check out these channels and get some of this great information. We're not entertaining. We're not entertainers. We just here to here to just share what we know. That's what we do. We research thoroughly. We try to research perfectly, and as accurate as possible, and we share what we know with the people. So please support the channels. Please subscribe to the channels. Please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about these channels. And man, that's all I have. Bro, I want to do say, and I didn't do it and again because I always want to give honor and praise to the ancestors. It's about over with, but it ain't great partaking that I take apart. I'm just speaking for myself. I always want to give it up, bless the ancestors. I'm not, bless the ancestors because they laid the work down, they laid the foundation down, they gave us a point to draw from, they gave us inspiration to draw from. So I always want to pay homage to them, not in a spooky way, but just in a way of the living ancestors that I know that laid work down for them, that personally inspire me and my own family, that inspire me that may not have been in my family, that may participate in some of these organizations that may have changed some things in history, that may have proven some of our plights in history. So I want to say Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Ilakba, Majuba Iba E Ilakba. So I also want to give honor praises to the elders. And again, we don't have a lot of elders. I'm just speaking from my standpoint in this conscious community. We don't have a lot of elders. You know what I'm saying? Y'all may call everybody that's older than you elder, but I'm not gonna do that. I look at things from an African worldview, from an African perspective, and these people that y'all hollering are elders in this community is not your damn elders. But I want to give honor and praises to them, those elders that are inspiring me to do better, to be the best person I can be for my family, to be the best person in my community, to people that those elders that I can draw my inspiration from, for me to get up off my lazy butt and get out there and put my boots to the ground and do something to uplift my community, to inspire my son, to inspire my stepdaughters, to inspire those who are coming behind me. That's all I got, man. Y'all got anything, man, before we end the show?
You kind of took something I was gonna wait to talk to Sean about after you closed, but since you kind of made a couple of statements, I wanted to feed off of it and big up Sean for it. And if anybody's in the chat, just symbolically, give him some hand claps or Black Power fists, because it takes a lot to do what he's doing. As far as it seems like every day he's putting out some form of information. And those little 5-minute videos that he's putting out, real sneaky, not giving anybody no warnings or nothing. To me, those are perfect snippets for advertising how dedicated and how sincere and important this information is that's being done behind the scenes. Me being forced into taking that break, it made me realize how much it takes to sit down and read these books constantly, research constantly, and for someone like Sean to make himself available everywhere. We love everybody in the sense of we see us all as one. So it's hard to say we wouldn't do this, but at the same sense, the audience and whoever realize that we do take away family moments. A big part of me disappearing was I had to give my daughters time, especially my youngest on her birthday, because when we're not on here, I'm reading or things like that. So for someone to make themselves available every single day, to put out information, to talk about things, to help us, to show us where we went wrong, to genuinely just show that they care and do it for free, all that work that they doing and give it to you for free, those are the ones that deserve they claps now to show what Black Power looks like. Not to just single anybody out, but I'm talking about that effort. And anybody who does this understands it is frustrating. And there's a lot of sacrifices. And to anybody that's listening, a small sacrifice from that and those little 5-minute snippets I was talking about, we can get Sean to do those on Facebook Live and just promise to make them go viral, that would help. You know, just share them over and over and over again. It's nothing but 5 minutes of somebody's time. Those is perfect ways to combat what's going on. So I just wanted to add that in because it's work that deserves its rewards by effort and application. Not so much trophies, but it's work that we're doing to see, because we see it now. We just want to put it in application. That Black Power, that whole concept of it.
Yeah. Man, that's peace, man. You said that, man. And when we'll get to the question, I'll let Sean show us the question. But there's a question in the chat. Like, you know, you saying you talking about Sean with the continuous of information that he put out consistent every day, right? And you know, and you mentioned how how important it is with family, and you took some time out. You kind of been out of pocket for for a few weeks or whatever, and you talk about that if you ain't on here, you read books. So it's important, you know what I'm saying, to try to, for you to get that time in with the what's the name, and that's why I feel like we so underrated when it comes to Kofi Pi-Sci TV affiliates, those affiliated with Kofi Pi-Sci TV, the Vasa Nicolos, Enio Red, Sean Calfunnies, the T'Challa Bangara, the Sutex, the sets of Tip and Rob Mary Almonds, even the Mossy Warrior Clan. I mean, there's some other groups, but I'm just speaking for these two channels in particular, man. We work so hard, man, and we try to be consistent and put out work. And people think that, okay, they'll be back next week and they think it's easy, but it's hard work. We work, we working, we work a certain amount of hours, we come home, we in the books, we grinding, we reading, we lack of sleep, you know what I'm saying? We lacking of sleep, you know what I'm saying? Then we got to go and try to compile all this information. A lot of times we have already read some of this information. It's just about going back into the books that we already read, and then there may be some more books that we might need to read. We may draw from some other articles, and etc. So it's a lot of work going into it, man. And then we come right back and we put these things out here, man. And sometimes I just feel like, we just unappreciated. And I feel like, I've been feeling like that. Well, I've been wanting to take me a little hiatus. I'm finna do it regardless. But it's not.
Oh, I meant to say that. Not to cut you off, but the last time we spoke, you was supposed to be on break. Yeah. But realizing this stuff has to be done, and this is speaking towards the chat, because when we talk about entertainment, or the chat saying there's less drama here, we could take it to those levels. All of us could, and this speaks towards another thing. Salute to all those who maintain the idea of practicing self-discipline, because we wanted to show how to do these things in proper ways. And that's what it's about. It's about creating positive influences. So salute to everybody that's doing it. It needs to be done, and salute to the ones that's doing it, because if we really took the time to analyze what we have, we giving people freshman courses of college level material for free. So I can see where that how do you say it? I hate to quote Pac at the moment, but you placing jewels in the hands of an innocent child who may not know the value and the preciousness towards the work of, symbolic towards that goes into all of this. This ain't just YouTube entertainment. These are ideas, and these are things to influence the way you live your life. And we dedicated to uplifting the best possible life for Black people that this earth has to offer. So how could you not support people that's trying to do something like that? Not to get too long with it, but yeah. I just felt like it was the moment to kind of throw that out.
Yeah, man. Sean, what was the question somebody had in the chat, man? Yeah, I can't forget about MBK too. I mean, MBK like one of my favorite channels right now, man. So peace to the MBK family. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. He said, Everything said was the first Black Power speech, the one in Black Klansman.
What was the first Black Power speech? The one
I haven't watched Black Klansman, so I can't.
I hadn't either. I don't know what that is. What is that? I don't even know. Black Klansman.
I think I know what they're trying to
think it's
ask.
an
I think
icon.
what they're trying to say, and it may just be the movie was trying to use symbolic of what was going on at the time. It shows Stokely speaking at a college, and I think they had it set in Colorado, where the audience got chatted out. The Black Power. It kind of showed the idea of that brewing.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that Spike Lee movie.
Yeah. I remember the speech. This was not too long after the Greenwood thing when he went to the college. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it was Stokely or Hamilton, because I think they switched places in the order of how the book is presented. But I think they use Frederick Douglass to kind of pull from the idea of drawing Black Power out as well in one of those books.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered whoever's question that was.
Yeah, everything was everything. That was a big question. But man, that's it, man. We finna sign off, man, and we appreciate y'all, man, and we'll see y'all. I'll be back. I don't know if it's gonna be anything on Kofi Pieside TV, but I know I kind of wanted to kind of come back to back these few weeks, because when I'm gone. I'm addicted to these. I can't even finish redoing my Raw document to understand the Raw, his many manifestations, finishing the book, because every time I work on it a little bit, and I put more time in reading books, reading articles, and putting PowerPoints together than doing that. So I need to finish that. So I'm gonna have to take me a hiatus. I'm gonna have to try to find a way to control from, like I was telling Sean, I'm addicted to doing PowerPoints. Even when I don't want to do that and just want to chill and relax, I can't do it. So I'm gonna have to find, I'm gonna do it. But I don't know if it's gonna be anything next week on Kofi Pieside TV. I might put some final thing together, but it may be the last one for this month. But I'll be back on possibly next week, and I'll probably be doing my last one for the month. I don't want to tell what the name of it is. It really is not a secret, but it's gonna be something dealing with Kemet. It's gonna be a nice presentation. It's gonna be a nice presentation. I would kind of like.
I can tell you right now what I'm about to do. I'm about to do Christ in Kemet. And I ain't gonna get too deep with it and none of that. I'm going to the root of the problem. I ain't got time to try to be breaking down all the craziness and everything on the walls and try to depict this and look and ship that and all of that. Who started this whole myth? That's what I'm about to get into.
Yeah. That'd be some fire to come back with. Yeah. And so y'all be looking for those presentations, man, here in the next week or two. So we'll see y'all next week at the same black time, on the same black channels. Peace and Black African power, and we out.